After many years of teasing that the youngest child of Naruto Uzumaki, the sweet and adorable little Himawari, possessed a hidden power inside of her, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 8 has finally confirmed for us that it was due to bijuu chakra that she was secretly in possession of. However, now that we have confirmation that this is the case with Himawari, I wanted to discuss where this ultimately takes us in Chapter 9 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, which is a reminder the chapter this month will be coming out 2 days early, so it'll be coming out on the 18th instead of the 20th, because there are a few ways that this could play out now that Jura has set his sights on Himawari, and he knows that it's not Naruto that he's been looking for, and instead it's Himawari Uzumaki. What we have here is a classic subversion of expectations, where we expect one thing to take place and in reality the author has something else planned for us, because everything in the story narratively, it was leading us down the path of believing that when Jura pulled up into Konoha, it would result in a moment where Jura and the Shinju, they invade the village and are specifically looking for Naruto, potentially pulling an Ishiki, where Ishiki went into the village looking for Kawaki, and this guy in the manga was mega polite and he was asking, have you seen a boy named Kawaki, going person by person interrogating them, going so far as to not even attack other shinobi in the manga until he himself was the one being attacked by them. We had Damon flat out telling Kawaki that unlike his sister Ada, who cares so deeply for Kawaki and wanted everything possible to remain a secret for him, Damon had no such feelings for Kawaki, and based off of the way that Damon was intentionally pushing Kawaki's buttons and he's smirking at him, giving him the side eye, it became clear that Damon was looking forward to Kawaki getting exposed, and by extension so too were a lot of fans who still want Kawaki to pay for what he's done to Boruto. The walls, they all appear to be closing in on Kawaki with each direction. We were looking at Kawaki as the story took place. After 3 years of lying and pretending to be Naruto's son and framing his real son for murder, Kawaki was being faced with several things outside of his control, from Boruto returning and making people like Mitsuki question why he wasn't angry and off the rails like the youth that they remembered from 3 years ago, to making Shikamaru, even before he knew the truth about Boruto, begin to have his own questions that were being built up on top of Sarada constantly defending Boruto. And you had Himawari saying that she didn't believe what was being said about Boruto, to now the biggest threat to Kawaki's lie is that the Shinju, in particular Jura, they can sense that Naruto's alive and they're coming to Konoha to confirm it. It felt like all the signs are pointing towards him to being exposed, which makes this Himawari plot twist work so well now, especially now that it looks like a battle is looming. The attention is on Himawari, the last person who Jura would have ever expected to have bijuu chakra, and it's important to note why this is significant that he locked on a Himawari of all people. He's following his instincts as being a product of the Ten Tails itself, so that chakra is something that he would lock in on. So look at it from another perspective. If he wanted bijuu chakra, there are other options out there. There are 7 bijuu literally roaming around free in territories that they call home, because part of the treaty following the 4th Ninja War was to not increase military capability, which is what would have happened if you started making shinobi into Jinchuriki, because Jinchuriki and grasp over bijuu chakra are stronger than the bijuu is on its own. If it was a Jinchuriki that Jura was after, you have Killer B literally out there, which, as a reminder, B is not dead in the Boruto era. When Momoshiki attacked him, the Boruto movie novel written by Ukyo Kodachi, the former Boruto writer, reveals that he's not dead, he survived the attack. When Momoshiki attacked him in the anime, if you pay very close attention to the Momoshiki versus Killer B fight, B manages to do the same thing he did against Sasuke and Madara. He cuts off part of his tentacle and he hides inside of it without being noticed, leaving behind a shadow clone to fool people that were hunting him down. It's kind of crazy that that trick fooled Sasuke with the Sharingan and Mangekyo Sharingan, Madara with the Rinnegan and Tuotsuki, which is absolutely crazy to think about it. Killer B basically went 3 for 3. Killer B is out there, and given that Kurama's chakra grew stronger during the 16-year gap, it would be safe to assume that something similar happened inside of B, but Jura specifically was looking for Himawari, which means 2 things. 1, the chakra inside of her is significantly higher, and 2, there's another connection there there that links them together that makes Jura want to focus on the Nine Tails itself, something that will likely be explained at a later date. I think the first option, it is worth exploring. The idea that whatever bijuu chakra inside of Himawari that there is asleep, and it ends up being higher than Killer B. When it's released, it lines up with Damon getting super excited when he sensed that power inside of her, and Jura locking onto that chakra signature specifically from another dimension. However, the problem that we run into is that while she has been training with Team 10 for the last 3 years, being able to handle bijuu chakra is not an easy task to do. It is really hard to do. There's a reason why throughout the history of the Naruto world, there have not been that many perfect Jinchuriki. And when you add in for Himawari as someone who hasn't been training to handle chakra for a long time, even when you factor in the training that she got as a small child and what she's got now, it's going to make that moment where Himawari starts using that power field that much more unpredictable, because it means that things can go sideways very quickly, just as we saw with her own father when he was struggling to control Kurama's chakra and the guy just blanked out and had that intense battle with Orochimaru, which remains one of the most underrated battles in the entire Naruto manga itself. And this moment with Himawari, it has potential to be even more unpredictable, because look at the circumstances she's facing right now. That is, of course, assuming that Himawari hasn't also inherited Minato's genius genes like Boruto did, and she's able to handle the chakra with no issues. Here's the thing, Jura, he's locked in on Himawari. The members of Team 10, they're all there ready to defend the village. They're standing on business right now, and let's be real for a second, none of us, maybe one person, maybe there's just one person out there that's delusional enough to think that they can do something, but most of us don't think much of anything at Team 10 in the scenario. It's not even the fact that there's a power gap that exists between the members of Team 10 and Jura that is as large as the gap between Konoha and Jubi Madara, but it's the fact that history, it isn't on their side. They feel like jobbers right now, which is basically people who are thrown in to be taken out very quickly for the sake of progressing the story and building up the bad guy. These are the same people that Amato, someone who isn't even a shinobi, was able to take down. Between Amato using his ninja tool and his quick thinking, he had Team 10 taken down and had them playing from a position of weakness, despite them each being physically stronger than him, which you can clip that scene out the anime and show it to any Boruto hating buffoon who still fixes their mouth because of groupthink that you see on Twitter and Reddit to say that there's no strategy and deception in Boruto fights, because we got a literal non-shinobi pulling the hidden move behind the hidden move stuff that these same people swear up and down that they say that they want. The point being is that Team 10 shouldn't stick around too long in this unless Jura and Hidari reveal that they have the same bad habit that Jigen had and that Ishiki had, which is a tendency to severely hold back when they fight people who are much weaker than them. It's also something that Madara had a problem with. It's a shonen villain trope. We're seeing it currently play out in Jujutsu Kaisen during what appears to be the final arc or the next to final arc. So I don't necessarily rule out. It's a trope that has existed for decades and it works for a reason. But even with Team 10, particularly Chocho and Shikadai, being more advanced and further along than their parents were at this same age almost 2 decades ago in the timeline, especially Chocho, but that's a conversation for another video, and one that I touched on bringing several facts up in the How Strong is Boruto generation video that backed that entire statement up. But regardless as to where they stand, the fact remains that none of them should be in any fight for a significant part of time unless it's a severe case of holding back and it's meant to serve as a trigger for Himawari's awakening. The other situation you run into at Himawari is whether or not Jura and the Shinju know that Boruto is Naruto's son. We know that Hidari is like, I don't know why I want to bite Sarada, and Matsuri doesn't know why she wants to bite Konohamaru, but we can basically tell that Jura, he's a little bit more evolved than the other Shinju. I bring that up to say that in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 4, Jura referred to Boruto as Boruto Otsuki or Otsuki Boruto, depending on the translation you read, which is absolutely fine. Genetically, he is Otsuki 100% due to what Momoshiki did to save Boruto's life by converting the rest of Momoshiki's genetic material to rebuild Boruto's damaged organs, including his heart. We can't say with certainty just yet that the Shinju know that Kawaki is Kawaki and Boruto's Naruto's child just yet. It's merely speculative conjecture until we get official confirmation, but assuming that Jura does know this information, the question of whether or not Jura sees the value in Himawari, it has to be asked. Right now, his very instincts are telling him to consume Himawari because he can sense the bijuu chakra inside of her. So the knee-jerk reaction is to go, well, of course, he is going to bite Himawari and eat her up. But it's also worth mentioning that there are signs that he could overrule his thirst and desire to taste Himawari because we've seen him do it in the past. His thirst for knowledge and understanding has him going against his own primal desires and his urges, which are telling him with every fiber of his being that eating Boruto and Kawaki is what he should be focused on. And yet, more than once we see that he's able to put aside his own cravings to pursue other things. When he two-tapped Kawaki and had him up against the water tank completely unconscious, he could have just as easily eaten Kawaki and that would have been that. But the man literally tells him to sit there quietly like he was the pimp and Kawaki was the bottom girl. If Jura knows that Boruto is really Naruto's child, then by extension, he would know that Himawari is Naruto's child, which makes Boruto her brother, and the Shinju, particularly Jura, were pretty set on eating Boruto first before Kawaki for reasons we don't know. Maybe it's because Boruto has more flavor to him than Kawaki, because unlike Kawaki, who is genetically Otsutsuki, Boruto has an Otsutsuki soul inside of his body, whereas Kawaki doesn't. That might be the difference between a well-seasoned tender steak and a leftover steak that someone puts in the microwave for a little too long. All my fellow foodies out there, they know that there's a huge difference. One is a flavor of meat that just melts in your mouth and the juices are flowing with each bite. And the other one is like biting into shoe leather. It could be the same with Boruto and Kawaki, which is why I even bring up that possibility that Jura might use Himawari as a way to get to Boruto. What have we said is Boruto's biggest thumbscrew in the entire Boruto franchise, going as far back as Boruto Naruto Next Generations and really going as far back as Boruto Naruto the movie? It was his sister Himawari, something that Sarada says in the Boruto movie novelization, that the way that Boruto looks at Himawari, his entire composure changes and she sees a side of him that she had never seen before. Himawari is the one thing that can make Boruto act out of character, as we saw when the stoic Boruto we saw in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, who was this quiet mega chad that was letting his actions speak for his words. He immediately dropped his composure when he saw Himawari for the first time in 3 years, and he looked like he's seen a ghost, similar to Asa Mitaka's reaction in the new Chainsaw chapter that you can click here to watch my review for.